iReady Reading Evaluation by Samantha Breinlinger. iReady Reading in Rural Schools. The target audience is third grade students in rural Alabama elementary schools. The instructional context is Tier 2 and Tier 3 reading intervention and support using iReady personalized instruction, which is also called MyPath, to provide differentiated standards-aligned instruction based on diagnostic and progress monitoring data for students' individual needs. The learning objectives and outcomes. So to evaluate iReady in this area, we want to look at if the objectives are presented to students in friendly terms and do they align with Alabama ELA state standards? Are the skills that align targeted and identified through diagnostics throughout the year? Alabama is also required to use certain tools as per the Alabama Literacy Act, so it has to align with that as well. Based on using iReady, the objectives were specifically stated within each lesson. For example, a lesson would begin with something like, identify the main idea of this paragraph. There were measurable outcomes once the practices began after each lesson. There's also a kid-friendly audio, and there were visuals as well. From experience, I do know iReady aligns with state standards in the Alabama Literacy Act because of its special components. iReady also uses diagnostics to create pathways for students through although during my exploration, I didn't get to utilize that specific area of the program. When using this tool, I made sure to look for best practices throughout. I wanted to see clear modeling and scaffolds, as well as multisensory learning tools to meet all students' needs. I also was looking to see if the content would adapt to my needs if I got things wrong, or when I got them correct, and see if there was immediate feedback to let me know how I was doing along the way. When evaluating iReady, I was first given a lesson with an interactive kid-friendly animation that walked me through the lesson. Then I had guided practices, followed by doing it on my own. Whether I got an answer correct or incorrect, I was provided with immediate feedback. The lesson restarted over again if I got it wrong, and having to sit through that exact same content and lesson was unengaging, and I lost motivation. So in the section I was in, I did not see a highlighting tool. I was able to utilize the drop downs and accessibility tools. Again, from experience, I do know that this iReady adapts to student performance. However, I was not able to use that portion of it while exploring the tool. So in third grade, some things could be self-guided and small group rotations. I wanted to see if the lessons were student friendly and if they could do the instruction on their own easily. For those with accommodations, I wanted to see if the program provided any of those types of things along with visuals that were not too overwhelming for them. Some Tier 2 and Tier 3 students shut down easily when they see that they've got the answer wrong. So I wanted to evaluate if penalty was given for every wrong answer or if students were able to progress even with minor mistakes. So for our rural students, I also wanted to see if they had access even in areas with limited bandwidth. And iReady did have the ability for the students to start the lessons on their own and replay the instructions if they needed to. It did not always allow you to zoom forward through the lessons if you already knew the content. It could hinder motivation because of that. Some areas where there was text to speech, I found myself not even listening really because it was reading it for me and I already knew the content. In some areas, if you got too many wrong answers, it would bump you all the way to the beginning, even though it was supposed to be the practice before the practice. So when using the tool and videos and interactive features, it would make it hard to do if I did not have fiber internet. But I didn't know that for sure, so I turned on my hotspot and it played on my mobile hotspot. So I would think that it would also play on for rural students. And I wanted to evaluate iReady to see if it had a gamification element that aligned with keeping students motivated and engaged in today's ever-connected world. I also wanted to determine if students would be able to know and understand what the goals were, how to obtain them, and what rewards they would earn for their persistence. This also included seeing if they could practice without being docked, which can decrease motivation in some students. Gamification was a big part of iReady. I earned coins to play games, and the games were all educational that I could choose from. Once I went back into the program with my coins, as a third grader, I'm not sure that they would pay attention to the goals without some outside tracker like writing it down or being accountable. Those are available tools though. It's exciting to get the answers correct and then proceed through the lessons and earn the rewards. When getting things wrong and having to redo the lessons, I wanted to stop doing the work altogether, though. I figured out if I failed the lesson enough times in a row, like 2 times in a row, it gave me something entirely new. So there wasn't really any motivation for me to keep trying and getting the answers correctly on those lessons because I knew it would just give me something else eventually anyway. For evaluation of assessment alignment, I wanted to determine what the pass rate was before moving on to the next lesson. Also, does the teacher see student progress in all areas of the program? Does my path change based on diagnostics and progress? And does the lesson itself teach what will be on the practices? And when looking at that, mastery was required before you move on. And the mastery level, though, it was like a 67% rate. So it wasn't 80 or above, which was what I was expecting. Some of the practices had only a few questions and others were much longer. From experience with the platform, I know teachers have immediate access to what the students are doing, their student reports, what their MyPath is. And the MyPath does change with each diagnostic, but not when they start progressing through the lessons, if that makes sense. So sometimes the lesson would be exactly what was taught in the video lesson. Sometimes it wouldn't match at all. So the questions or the practices weren't the same. And then moving on to data privacy and protection or security. So protection is top priority when looking for tools to use. Therefore, for evaluating this part of the iReady platform, we wanted to see if FERPA was followed, if student data was stored securely, who had access to that data, do parents know and understand what data is collected and shared about their students. And I've found that there had been some recent backlash over iReady and student data, noting that they might not follow FERPA in the way parents think that they do. This means data may be shared to third parties, and it was ongoing for updates, so I didn't have any conclusion there. Usually, only the district and schools would have data access directly from the program, and if the program had access, they wouldn't be sharing that data. I don't know what iReady does on their side, but I know more than likely parents are not specifically given that information about instructional platforms that their child uses at the school. The district usually only has like a coverall statement about their student using technology. So overall, the data suggests there are several strengths and weaknesses with implementing iReady reading. Though it aligns well and has structured instruction, it can be repetitive and discouraging for Tier 2 and Tier 3 students when attempting to learn and practice new skills. But with proper teacher monitoring and engagement, the data based on evaluation shows it to be a useful tool. So there's always going to be good and bad in each program chosen. For the most part, iReady checks all the boxes when used as a support tool for Tier 2 and Tier 3 students. I think allowing students to be self-paced will not have as good of outcomes as a teacher who is monitoring students closely, looking at their progress, and aiding in the learning process alongside iReady.